Hey there, aspiring game developers. Whether you're just starting out or are knee-deep in your first project, you've probably realized that making a game is complicated. A bit like trying to juggle flaming swords while riding a unicycle. It's a wild one, and the path to launching your first game is filled with more than a few tar pits. So, to help you avoid some of the most common errors, we've put together this list of the top 5 mistakes people make when creating their first game. Let's dive straight into the first one. This one's a classic. You start off with a simple idea, like making a platformer with a cute little character that hops around collecting coins. But then, the scope creep monster shows up. Somehow, that simple platformer has turned into an open-world MMORPG platformer with 50 playable characters, branching storylines, and a fully functional weather system with AI. Next thing you know, you've spent 5 years working on a project that's nowhere near completion, and your game is looking more like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's a harsh reality, but biting off more than you can chew is the fastest way to kill your game before it even has a chance to see the light of day. We get asked to fix such overscope projects all the time. Here's the thing, it's not just about finishing the game, it's about finishing a good game. Start with something that can actually be finished. Pick an idea that you can realistically complete within your budget and time frame. You can always scale up once the idea works, but scaling down is much more expensive because you have already built redundant features. We always tell first-time developers to keep it simple. It's better to finish a simple game than to start and abandon a big one. A slight overlap with the previous point, and the one mistake that can make all the difference between your game being a smashing success or a complete flop. You could have the most amazing game idea in the world, but if you don't have the right funding, it's probably not going to happen. It's like trying to throw the best party ever, but with no money to rent the venue or send out the invites. Budgeting isn't just an afterthought, it needs to be part of your game development strategy from the start. Can you actually afford to build your idea? Whether it's through your own personal funds, family and friends, publishers, crowdfunding, or even venture capital funding, this needs to be a priority above all else. Now let's talk genres. Not all genres are created equal. Some are just downright tricky to develop, especially if you're new to all this. It's very tempting to dive into making an MMORPG because, hey, World of Warcraft is awesome, right? But here's the kicker. MMOs are a logistical nightmare. They're complex, expensive, and require a ton of content and maintenance. Hey, we have no issues developing such a game, but just brace yourself for a very long journey. Nothing like spending 10 years of your life developing a game that was doomed to fail before you even started, right? Instead, consider starting with a genre that's more manageable. Roguelike games, 2D platformers, or even survival games are often easier to build and can be just as successful. And don't worry, simpler genres doesn't mean simpler ideas. Creativity thrives within constraints. At our studio, we often say it's better to master a few meaningful mechanics first. You can work your way up to those epic open-world RPGs a bit later. This next one's a bit of a heartbreaker. You've got the vision, you've got the drive, but do you have the right team? Working with the wrong people, or even worse, a team that struggles to collaborate can be a death sentence for your game. Whether it's a lack of experience or a clash of personalities, the wrong team can derail your project faster than you can say bug report. Look, you don't need a rockstar developer who's launched 20 games. This is actually not realistic. This is one of the biggest errors we see, to purely hire based on experience alone. What you need are people who are passionate, committed, and have the specific skills required for your game. We've seen promising projects crumble under the weight of poor team dynamics many times over. So make sure to work with people who are actually interested and passionate about your idea, rather than just the paycheck. Imagine this, you're making a game, but nobody knows what's going on. This is extremely common in development. So common in fact, it is possibly the number one reason why games derail from their original vision. A typical scenario is where the artist is working on assets that don't fit the world, the programmer is implementing features that aren't actually needed, And you're left scratching your head, wondering where it went all wrong. What exactly happened? The answer, in many cases, is game production. Game production, sometimes known as simply project management, might not be the most glamorous part of game development, but it's absolutely crucial. Without a clear plan, your team will become hyper inefficient, running around in circles. Remember that the lead producer needs to have a clear vision for your game and to make sure everyone on your team is on the same page. Unfortunately, this must be repeated on a regular basis. Sometimes, small teams do not have a producer, and you might get away with it if you are lucky. However, for more serious and bigger games, it should not be an afterthought, as it probably will have catastrophic consequences. This is what ends up causing many games to have very low quality control, as well as the game being very inconsistent with itself, which is why in any good game dev team, a good producer is worth their weight in gold. They'll keep your project on track and ensure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Game development is a challenging journey, but with the right approach, a great team, and a bit of good marketing, you can turn your game into the next big hit. And remember, if you need a little extra help with your game, contact us and we can see how we can help you on your journey. So there you have it, the top 5 mistakes to avoid when making your first game. Thank you for watching and happy developing.